Welcome to Tidbit Talkin. This is a series that consists of spewing out assorted thoughts which arose from somebody who thinks too much, taking in, and generally loving entertainment media by the boatload. These tidbits may be mini theories, observations, or simply jokes. Hopefully people will find them entertaining or at least interesting. And who knows, maybe they'll inspire others to look at what amuses them in different ways than before. Also bear in mind that everything blabbed about in these videos are from the perspective of somebody who's experienced every main story bit connected with whatever works currently being gone over. So spoilers are a definite. However, other works set in a shared continuity will typically solely be referenced in a way that only makes sense to anybody who's also fully experienced those ones up until their same time occurring points. Sort of a coded nod kind of deal. So, while things will be more fun for viewers who've indulged with an entire universe's works, nobody who has yet to do so will get non-experienced events spoiled. Now, with all of that out of the way, here we go. The Trap. Gideon most likely activated immediately after Sisko uttered the phrase Mazel Tov because Barry, who never took a language in high school, designed her to consider translation an extremely high priority. This especially makes sense when considering that the Barry who designed this Gideon was already a Justice League member, as his heroics with said group would almost definitely involve world traveling. Gideon may have trouble understanding the question about who Wells really is because old timeline Barry programmed her to get confused by secret identity related junk so his own could stay protected if she was lost and or stolen. The floating head tech gal, of course, has no problem talking to Barry about his own identity because she recognizes her creator's voice. In the previous timeline, Harrison Wells probably did set out to help out everybody hospitalized or otherwise severely hurt by his accelerator's explosion, not just Barry Allen. The real Harrison Wells likely had a much easier time reaching out than Dawn did, especially because he would have been helped out by Tess on top of just being naturally much more pleasant and personable than his future body thief. Sisko's favorite shirt probably wasn't eaten by his dryer in the most recent timeline. What most likely really happened was that he lost the thing because his frustration over no longer having an excuse to avoid Dante's party made him all unfocused and thus more losing track of stuff prone. The lecture Dawn was supposedly at while everybody was trap planning could have just been him teaching Everyman how to imitate his Wells impersonation. Dawn would have still been able to use Everyman as an effective decoy while he weaseled away if the guy stole his true appearance upon touching him. All he'd have to do is set up a scenario where the team discovers some strange blonde guy with Gideon, who would subsequently refer to him as Eobard Thawne, aka Reverse Flash. Then complex villainy would ensue. Just a fun little thing. Everyman is trying very hard not to use his left hand while impersonating Thawne. Grodd Lives. Thawne was likely having Grodd steal gold specifically because a crime spree involving something that's so universally considered valuable would make other thefts less of a priority for the police. This distract the authorities with shiny trinkets plan would make his robbing of random tech for future power source assembling much easier to finish. That armored police van disguised as an ice cream truck may have been mistaken for the real deal because some previously security-light businesses in Central City decided scaling things up defense-wise seemed necessary in a world where petty criminals have superpowers and or weapons. Grodd mentions that Thawne hates guns. This may be because the guy's bitter over not always being faster than bullets anymore. Rogue Air. The previous timeline probably had actual Harrison Wells really getting paralyzed, and he likely found out about Barry while legitimately checking into a hospital. After discovering this comatose young man's mysterious heart rhythm issue, Wells probably spent most of his time pondering it out of guilt. This situation led to the man discovering that Barry's heart was beating extremely fast via plain old scientific deduction rather than just knowing about such a thing from personal experience. Thawne needed to fake this injury and set of events for his timeline manipulations because changing it would be too risky. Such a future ensuring false bodily crisis could have been achieved either via some kind of tiny future tech like Thawne's body stealing device or simply using Wells' money to bribe a less morally sound doctor. Anyway, Thawne probably wasn't just faking his injury so he could charge up with the Speed Force battery by hiding it in his wheelchair, because if he needed such extensive refueling time, standing up at home wouldn't really help at all. It seems Thawne can get his fix just by being near the Speed Force battery for about half a day. Based on that, the man could have easily just sat at home near his battery in order to get a sufficient dosage if he didn't make himself seem physically handicapped. In other words, the reverse of what he's shown to do on screen. On the subject of Dawn's Speed Force battery, he could have easily charged that thing by hiding it in Barry's lab before a certain lightning bolt came crashing down. He definitely had an opportunity to hide stuff there before Barry knew him, given that his CSI workplace monitoring surveillance camera was already active when the particle accelerator turned on. Dawn only leaves Eddie alone after he's thoroughly filled the guy's head with Barry and Iris belonging together related information, thus solidifying his own existence and speed power availability. What Eobard's doing after abandoning Eddie is probably more junk that will solidify his own existence, like somehow setting up a way for the now minded heartbroken present belonging Dawn to meet whatever woman leads to reverse/conception friendly descendant birth chains. Dawn released Peekaboo specifically as his distraction because she'd be hard to chase but pretty much incapable of hurting him and or Barry. There'd also be no risk of her accidentally destroying the accelerator that just got reactivated. Cisco probably knows where that power tube goes because its insertion point was some kind of unexplained part of the accelerator's design that he always found suspicious. Dawn likely made that weird hole as a secondary power source so he could turn the accelerator back on without anybody working at Central City's energy companies realizing Star Labs was up to civilization-sized fuse-blowing levels of techno-wizardry again. Given how closely Lisa and Mick's illegal activities were tied with Leonard's, Barry probably had to erase their criminal records too as part of the deal, since not doing so would make things extremely complicated. Oliver was late not only due to Nanda Parbat being incredibly far from Central City, but also because he couldn't do anything before making sure no other League of Assassin members were following him. This course of action may have even involved him needing to hunt down and kill a Hive agent or perform some other professional agent kill cult type work. Firestorm may have been late because Stein and Ronnie would of course have aided anybody they witnessed needing help between Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania and Central City, Missouri. Dawn probably was actually waiting around for those guys to show up because, like he said, fighting everybody at once would be fun. Fast enough. Dawn is likely lying about being born 136 years from everybody else's present, given that such statements conflict with his dead for centuries line a fair bit. Perhaps he didn't want to risk the Flash coming after him in his home time period and gave out the birth date of another Dawn, first named Eobard, one whom is not a direct descendant, as some sort of attempt at an extraordinary Kansas City shuffle. The original particle accelerator, built by Harrison Wells, most likely wasn't so easy to run on. Dawn probably built the new Histories one like some sort of track so that Barry would be forced to develop time-traveling methods an outside source could easily monitor. Specifically, Dawn wanted Barry to develop a conditioned reflex that would make him always return from temporal trips at the same spot. That way Dawn could either provide damage control or sabotage depending on how things went for him. Dawn's likely comfortable with Barry changing history just this once because he's already calculated and planned responses for every ripple effect as part of his 15-year-long scheme. Said master plan likely included a follow-up scheme that involved figuring out how to kill Barry without changing Eobard's future too much, especially in the him having super speed department. This could be the real reason Dawn's so concerned with Cisco remembering a previous history, since an ally of Barry having such powers could ruin his plans no matter what timeline anybody's in. Plus, there being a chance that Cisco could develop the ability to suspend Speed Force connections like his comics counterpart would really worry Dawn. Dawn's particle accelerator track located wormhole is probably the result of some sort of Speed Force error that comes about when any one or thing moving impossibly fast but not empowered by it collides with an authentic speedster currently trying to leave their universe/era. On a related note, one reason Dawn wanted to go back to the future like this rather than just having Barry carry him or whatever may be because he didn't want his nemesis finding out where/when that truly is. Dawn may have not known the exact materials needed to manufacture a time sphere because he never made one before, since there was no need with his speed. He probably got the general idea of how to construct one after examining wreckage left behind by Rip Hunter or somebody. Thus, the plans Dawn handed off to Cisco and everybody else were just a really good guess. Dawn most likely set up that singularity to form seconds after his departure as a trap for everybody in case the current timeline didn't get changed. He probably did so because things not getting reset would be an indication that this current Barry possessed a heroism level equal to his old timeline counterpart, aka the man Dawn love-hates most. Thus, an excruciating death would be in order. This probably wasn't intentional, but it looks like Snarch robbing Mayor Bellows during all the singularity shenanigans. Unsorted General Season Thoughts. Thawne isn't too keen about pretending to be Wells and helping out with villain defeat related strategizing if the rogues are involved because he's infuriated when others score arch nemesis points with Barry Allen. The whole thing just makes his con no fun anymore. A breakdown of how various speedster activity related liquid physics wonkiness instances may have came about. Those forensics chemicals in Barry's lab get all eerie eruption experiencing because the Speed Force is busting into normal reality and getting ready to empower him. Likewise, Thawne's post-accelerator activation, Champagne Creepy Crawling's cause, is the negative Speed Force making an echoed entrance into his physiology. The colossally collapsed, composition categorized corpse closeness case of bizarre beverage bouncing came about because Thawne's DNA is strapped to Wells's and a confused negative Speed Force is constantly making an impossible attempt at super fastness installing. Thawne's tube insertion focused pipeline break-in mission renders Cisco's orange soda slow skyward stroll stunned because he just got a burst of speed and each power reinstatement for him involves an entirely new negative Speed Force connection. Young Barry's funky flowing fish tank trouble as a result of a confused Speed Force trying to connect with him because his adult counterpart just showed up. Cisco's penchant for naming metas may have came about due to early stage vibe powers. His inspiration is caused by incomprehensible, deeply buried prior timeline originating memories of everyone deciding what they'd be called on their own. Endings are a pain, but all of you are fantastic. See ya.